In a galaxy far beyond Earth, a vast coalition of alien empires rules with unquestioned authority. These ancient species, advanced in both technology and arrogance, view themselves as the pinnacle of evolution. For eons, they have dominated the stars, enforcing their rule over countless worlds. Their alliance has remained strong, bound by a shared belief in their superiority. To them, the galaxy belongs to them alone. Humanity, in contrast, is a forgotten afterthought. Once a rising civilization on their home planet, they were quickly subdued and enslaved by the Coalition. Now, humans are scattered across the galaxy, reduced to menial laborers and servants in alien cities. They have been dismissed as primitive and weak, their potential overlooked by the powers that be. To the Coalition, humans are just another species to be controlled, a resource to be exploited, not a threat to be feared. Earth, too, has fallen under the Coalition's rule. Its resources are stripped, its people subjugated. Human culture, once vibrant and full of potential, has been suppressed, buried under the weight of alien rule. The Coalition barely notices humanity anymore. They believe that they have tamed the species, rendering them docile, incapable of resistance. In their arrogance, they never even bothered to study human history or the deeper truths hidden in their past. But there is something within humans that even they have forgotten, something buried deep in their DNA. Ancient stories and myths once spoke of a time when humans were more than what they seemed. Long before the rise of the Coalition, humans were feared, not for their technology or their intellect, but for a dormant power that lay within them. Stories of battle gods, humans capable of unthinkable feats of strength and strategy, were whispered across the galaxy. Over time, these tales faded into legend, dismissed as fantasy by the Coalition and forgotten by the humans themselves. Captain Layla Owens is one such human, living under the Coalition's thumb. Stationed on a distant outpost, she serves as a low-ranking officer in the alien military. Her role is menial, following orders without question, surrounded by species that see her as little more than a useful tool. Day in and day out, she watches the alien commanders rule over her people with condescension, always reminded of her place. She had once hoped for more, but those hopes have long since been extinguished by the reality of their situation. Layla has learned to survive in this harsh world, keeping her head down, doing what is expected of her, and nothing more. She dreams of something greater, but deep down, she knows that fighting back is futile. The Coalition's power is absolute, and no human has ever dared to challenge them. Yet, in the quiet moments, a feeling of unrest stirs within her, a sense that something isn't right, like she's meant for more than this. It is during one of these quiet moments that everything changes. Layla and her squad, composed mostly of other human laborers, find themselves in a dangerous situation. They are caught in the middle of a sudden skirmish between rival alien factions. The fighting is intense, and their alien commanders, valuing their own lives above all, abandon them without a second thought. They flee the battlefield, leaving Layla and the rest of the humans defenseless. As the enemy closes in, Layla feels a surge of fear and anger. They've been left to die, thrown away like they're nothing. But then, something strange happens. In the heat of the moment, as the alien forces prepare to strike, Layla's body reacts in ways she cannot explain. Her movements become faster, her instincts sharper. She picks up a fallen weapon, her hands moving with a precision she's never known before. Without hesitation, she charges toward the enemy. What happens next is nothing short of extraordinary. Layla fights with a skill that surprises even her. Her reflexes are faster than anything the aliens have seen. In moments, she takes down enemies that should have been far beyond her ability to defeat. It's as though something ancient, something primal, has awakened within her. She doesn't just survive the battle, she dominates it. In a matter of minutes, she single-handedly wipes out the entire enemy force, leaving the battlefield strewn with the bodies of her alien opponents. When the dust settles, Layla stands in the center of the battlefield, her breath heavy, her mind racing. She can hardly believe what she has just done. Her squad looks at her with wide eyes, unsure of what they've witnessed. But Layla knows something has changed. Something inside her has woken up, a power she didn't know she had. Word of her incredible feat spreads quickly, and whispers begin to circulate among the human population. For the first time in generations, humans have done more than just survive, they've fought back. But this is only the beginning. Layla's victory is more than just an isolated incident. It's a sign of something much larger at play, something that the galaxy had long forgotten. The Coalition, of course, dismisses the event as a fluke, attributing it to luck or coincidence. They continue to believe that humans pose no threat, that they are too insignificant to be of any concern. But deep within the human population, something stirs. For too long, they have been suppressed, their true potential ignored. Now, that potential is beginning to surface once more. And as Layla looks down at her hands still trembling from the battle, she knows that whatever just awakened within her is far from over. Layla's world changed after that battle, but the real shift came not just in the way others saw her, but in the way she saw herself. She couldn't explain what happened on the battlefield. In the days following the skirmish, she found herself thinking back to that moment, replaying it over and over in her mind. How had she moved so quickly? How had she known exactly where to strike, even before her enemies did? The aliens didn't ask questions, and neither did her superiors. Most of them attributed the incident to luck or random chance, content to leave it at that. But Layla couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted deep within her, something she hadn't fully grasped yet. And she wasn't alone. News of the battle spread, whispered quietly among the humans who served under the Coalition. People talked of Layla as if she were something more than human now. She could see it in the way they looked at her, with awe and curiosity. But there was something else too. Fear. Fear that whatever had awakened in her was not unique to her alone. It was this fear that began to ripple through the human population. And then it happened again. Weeks later, in another distant corner of the galaxy, a similar event occurred. A human mining crew, thought to be powerless under the alien overseers, found themselves under attack from a rogue alien faction. They should have been easy prey, but like Layla, one of the miners exhibited unnatural speed and strength, defending the crew with impossible precision. The result was the same: an entire enemy force was wiped out by a single human. This was no longer a coincidence. Something was waking up in the human race, and it was spreading fast. Layla knew she had to act. She began reaching out to other humans who had experienced similar awakenings. The stories were all the same: men and women who had, in moments of life-threatening danger, unlocked abilities they never knew they had. It wasn't just physical strength. Some developed heightened senses, others had a near-telepathic ability to predict the moves of their opponents before they made them. The patterns were undeniable. These weren't just random occurrences. This was something far more ancient, something buried in their DNA, waiting for the right moment to emerge. Layla found herself drawn to the ancient stories, the myths of the battle gods. Long forgotten by humanity, these stories spoke of a time when humans were once the most feared warriors in the galaxy. They were said to possess abilities far beyond those of any other species, powers that had been passed down through the generations. But over time, those powers had faded, buried deep within their genetic code. Now, for reasons no one fully understood, those powers were coming back. But with power came danger. As more humans awakened, the alien coalition began to take notice. What had started as rumors and isolated incidents was now becoming impossible to ignore. The coalition, having ruled the galaxy for so long, had grown complacent, but they were not blind to threats. And this resurgence of human power, was a threat unlike any they had faced before. The coalition reacted swiftly. In the following weeks, they deployed their most elite forces to suppress the growing human resistance. Entire fleets were sent to Earth and other human-populated worlds to quell the uprising before it could gain any real momentum. But for every battle fought, more humans awakened, and each one was stronger than the last. It was becoming clear that the more humans were pushed, the faster their abilities evolved. And it wasn't just strength and speed anymore. Some began to remember ancient combat strategies, tactics that had been lost to time. Humans started forming underground resistance groups, using these forgotten techniques to outmaneuver and outfight the alien forces. Layla found herself at the center of this growing resistance. The others looked to her for guidance, not just because she had been one of the first to awaken, but because she had a natural ability to lead. She could see the bigger picture, the war that was coming. And she knew that the aliens would stop at nothing to keep humanity suppressed. But this time, humans weren't going to be so easily defeated. The turning point came when Layla and her small group of awakened humans managed to outsmart and destroy an entire fleet of coalition warships using tactics the aliens had never seen before. It wasn't just brute force, it was precision, strategy, and an innate understanding of the battlefield that even the most advanced alien generals couldn't predict. The alien coalition, once confident in their control over the galaxy, began to panic. They had always believed that their technology and numbers would keep them in power, but the humans were proving them wrong at every turn. The coalition's greatest warlords were sent to deal with the humans personally, but even they could not stand against the growing might of the newly awakened human warriors. Layla realized that this was only the beginning. As more and more humans awakened, the tide of power was shifting. The alien coalition, which had ruled the galaxy for so long, was now facing an enemy they had never prepared for. An enemy that, until recently, they had dismissed as weak and irrelevant. But now, the galaxy was beginning to remember the truth. Humans were not just another race. They were something far older, something far more powerful than anyone had ever imagined. And they were just getting started. The awakening spread rapidly across human settlements, and soon, it was no longer isolated to a few individuals. Ordinary men and women, once laborers and servants, were transforming into formidable warriors. What began as whispers of rumors now blazed through human colonies. Humans were discovering powers thought to be the stuff of ancient legend. The alien coalition could no longer ignore it. At first, the coalition tried to contain the spread with surgical precision. Small task forces were sent to suppress the uprisings wherever they began to emerge. They believed it would be enough to handle what they still viewed as isolated incidents. But every encounter told a different story. These humans were unlike anything the galaxy had seen. They weren't just stronger or faster, they exhibited an almost preternatural ability to adapt to battle conditions, predict enemy movements, and turn the tide of conflict in their favor. And the more the coalition pushed, the stronger the humans became. The coalition was not accustomed to facing such a challenge. For millennia, they had ruled unchallenged. Their fleets and armies had crushed every rebellion, quelled every insurgency. But this was different. The humans weren't just rebelling, they were awakening something far older, something buried deep within their species. And the more humans were oppressed, the faster this awakening spread. Layla Owens had now become the face of the resistance, a symbol of what humans were becoming. Her name spread like wildfire, whispered among the enslaved and the oppressed. She wasn't just another soldier, she was the first of the battle gods, a title once thought to be mere myth. Now, she was leading the charge, gathering more and more awakened humans under her command, preparing for the inevitable confrontation with the alien coalition. But the coalition wasn't idle. They quickly realized they were dealing with something far more dangerous than they had anticipated. If the humans were allowed to continue their awakening, the balance of power in the galaxy could shift permanently. They could no longer afford small-scale operations. It was time to act decisively. The Coalition's ruling council, a group of the most powerful and influential alien species, convened to discuss the situation. They had never imagined that humans, the species they had long dismissed as insignificant, would rise to become such a threat. Their decision was swift. They would deploy their greatest fleets, their most advanced technologies, and their most ruthless warlords to put an end to the human uprising before it could spread any further. The Coalition viewed this as their final, definitive move to crush the humans once and for all. They underestimated the scale of what was coming. The humans had already begun to organize, forming resistance groups across the galaxy. These weren't just rebels with weapons, they were awakening to ancient knowledge. Humans, once scattered and divided, were now uniting under a common cause, and under leaders like Layla, they were rediscovering the tactics and strategies that had once made them feared warriors. Entire human factions were now operating in secret, moving swiftly and striking with precision against the alien forces. Layla herself had become more than just a leader. She had grown into her role as a battle god, unlocking abilities that even she hadn't fully understood when she first awakened. She could anticipate enemy movements before they happened, calculate entire battle scenarios in her mind, and adapt on the fly in ways that made her an unstoppable force on the battlefield. Other humans followed suit, awakening to their own unique abilities. Each human seemed to possess a different aspect of the battle god legacy. Some had unmatched strength, others had enhanced senses, and still others could manipulate technology or energy in ways that confounded even the most advanced alien scientists. The Coalition, realizing the gravity of the situation, unleashed their warlords, veterans of countless galactic conflicts, beings who had never known defeat. They brought with them fleets that could lay waste to entire planets, advanced weaponry that had crushed civilizations in the past. The aliens were confident that this would be the end of the human uprising. They had always won before, and they believed they would win again. But this time, they faced an enemy they could not comprehend. The battles that followed were unlike anything the galaxy had seen. Humans, empowered by their awakening, fought with a level of precision and ferocity that caught the Coalition completely off guard. Coalition warships were ambushed and destroyed by small human fleets that moved with incredible coordination. Alien ground forces were wiped out in brutal engagements where humans displayed a mastery of combat that hadn't been seen in millennia. What the aliens had thought would be a swift victory turned into a nightmare. For every human they tried to suppress, two more awakened, each one stronger and more capable than the last. Layla, leading the charge, orchestrated these battles with a clarity and vision that the alien generals could not match. She knew their strategies before they even executed them, positioning her forces in ways that exploited every weakness in the Coalition's defense. Every time the aliens thought they had the humans cornered, Layla turned the tables, striking at their most vulnerable points. It wasn't just brute force that was winning the war for humanity, it was knowledge, tactics, and an understanding of warfare that had been lost to time. The alien coalition, for the first time in its long history, was facing an enemy it could not control. Their warlords, once undefeated, fell one by one to human forces. Entire fleets were decimated, and the once mighty coalition began to fracture under the pressure. The humans, once seen as a minor threat, were now a force to be reckoned with. The coalition's arrogance had blinded them to the true potential of humanity, and now they were paying the price. As more humans awakened, the resistance grew stronger, and the coalition grew weaker. It was becoming clear that this wasn't just a rebellion, it was the beginning of a new era. Humans were reclaiming their place in the galaxy, and there was little the coalition could do to stop it. Layla knew that the final battle was approaching. The coalition's forces were retreating, regrouping for one last stand. They would throw everything they had at the humans in a desperate attempt to regain control. But Layla was ready. She had seen the coalition's moves before they made them, and she knew that humanity's time had come. The galaxy would soon remember the truth, that humans were not just another species to be ruled. They were the battle gods of old, and their time had come to reclaim the stars. The final confrontation was inevitable. The alien coalition had been backed into a corner, its forces scattered, its warlords defeated. But this was not just any retreat, it was a calculated move. They had decided to gather their remaining strength for one final push, a desperate attempt to crush the human uprising once and for all. It was a gamble, but they had no other option. The humans had become too powerful, too unpredictable. If the coalition didn't act now, they knew they would lose the galaxy forever. Layla Owens had anticipated this move. She knew the coalition wouldn't surrender easily, and that their final attack would be their most dangerous yet. But she was ready. The humans were no longer scattered rebels. They were an army, united and stronger than ever. Over the past months, they had awakened to their full potential, each human unlocking their own unique abilities. And as they had grown in power, so had their coordination. Layla, at the head of this force, had transformed into a true battle god, her instincts and tactical genius unmatched. The coalition gathered its forces at one of the galaxy's most strategically important outposts, a massive star fortress that controlled access to several key sectors. If the humans could take it, the coalition would lose its last major foothold, and the galaxy would be theirs. The coalition knew this, and so they had fortified the outpost with everything they had left. Hundreds of warships, legions of soldiers, and their most advanced technology were all concentrated there, ready for the final stand. Layla's forces, on the other hand, were smaller but more efficient, each fighter a warrior in their own right, capable of taking on dozens of alien soldiers. They had something the coalition could never understand: unity, born not out of fear or necessity, but out of a shared purpose. The humans were fighting not just for survival, but for the future of their species. They were reclaiming what had been taken from them, and they were doing it together. The battle began with a fury the galaxy hadn't seen in millennia. The coalition unleashed everything they had, determined to overwhelm the humans with sheer firepower. Their warships fired in unison, a barrage of energy and missiles meant to annihilate Layla's forces before they could even get close. But the humans were ready. Using tactics and strategies that had been lost to time, they maneuvered through the onslaught with precision, exploiting every weakness in the coalition's formation. Layla herself led the charge, directing her forces with an uncanny sense of timing. She could see the battlefield in ways the coalition commanders couldn't comprehend, predicting their moves before they made them and positioning her forces to counter every attack. The humans moved as one, their coordination flawless, their strikes devastating. Every alien warship that fell was a symbol of the old order crumbling, and with each victory, the humans grew bolder. But the coalition wasn't finished yet. They had one last card to play: their superweapon, an ancient device capable of destroying entire planets. It had been their ace in the hole, a weapon of last resort that they had never used before. If they couldn't defeat the humans in battle, they would wipe them out in a single strike, erasing their homeworld and their entire species in one fell swoop. Layla knew about the superweapon. Her intelligence network had discovered its existence weeks before the battle, and she had prepared for this moment. The coalition's reliance on brute force and overwhelming power had always been their downfall, and this time would be no different. As the coalition prepared to fire the weapon, Layla made her move. In a daring maneuver, she led a strike team deep into the heart of the Star Fortress, bypassing the heavy defenses and infiltrating the control center of the superweapon. The coalition had never anticipated such a bold move. They believed their fortress was impenetrable, their technology invincible. But Layla and her team, using their awakened abilities, moved through the fortress like ghosts, disabling security systems and neutralizing guards before they even knew what was happening. By the time the coalition realized what was going on, it was too late. Layla had reached the control center and deactivated the superweapon, rendering it useless. The coalition's last hope had been taken from them, and with it, their will to fight. Their forces, already on the brink of defeat, began to crumble. The remaining warlords, realizing the futility of their situation, surrendered one by one. The battle was over. The humans had won. As the coalition's forces retreated, the galaxy began to change. The old order, ruled by fear and oppression, was no more. The humans, once enslaved and forgotten, had reclaimed their place among the stars. But this was not just a victory of arms, it was a victory of spirit. Humanity had proven that they were not the weak, primitive species the coalition had believed them to be. They were the battle gods of old, and they had risen once again. Layla stood on the bridge of her ship, looking out at the stars. The war was over, but she knew that this was just the beginning. Humanity had reclaimed their power, but with it came responsibility. They were now the most powerful force in the galaxy, and how they used that power would shape the future for generations to come. The galaxy would never be the same again. The coalition, once the rulers of all, had been brought to their knees. And the humans, once the slaves, were now the masters of their own destiny. But Layla knew that this new era would not be without its challenges. There were still remnants of the coalition out there, and new threats would surely rise. The galaxy was vast, and with power came new dangers, new enemies. But for now, the humans could celebrate their victory. They had earned it through blood, sweat, and sacrifice. They had proven that no matter how long they were suppressed, no matter how forgotten they would always rise again. Layla, now a legend among her people, knew that the road ahead would be difficult. But she also knew that humanity had something no other species did: the ability to adapt, to overcome, and to thrive. They had faced the greatest threat the galaxy had ever known, and they had emerged victorious. The future was theirs to shape, and for the first time in a long time, it was bright. Humanity had awakened, and there was no turning back. The stars, once out of reach, now belonged to them again.